Well, are you going to stop it?
No, I want to fight him.
I think people loved that aspect of him. They didn't know what he was going to say and what he was going to do. And I mean, the things he came out with, they did just spontaneously laugh. You know, they were funny.
I mean, famously, on the Muhammad Ali interview that I did, Brian at the end was, well, he also stood up and asked a question. And he said to Muhammad Ali, he said, "You lost, Muhammad." He said, "You lost the fight." He said, "You lost your temper." And I looked at this guy, who the hell is this? Telling me, the world champion. But that was Brian.
Are you having a nice time in England?
Yeah, all but now.
He was wonderful. I was terrified of Muhammad Ali, not him.
I think that was the beauty of talking to him. You felt you had to be on your mettle and just wait and get into the contest if he gave you the opportunity.
He'd point out things that were going to upset somebody, but it didn't stop him, and it was magical. That's how he was. If you think something, say it.
We're now not going home and enjoying it. We're not seeing as much football as we should, and we're getting too much of that, and I suggest you shut up and show more football.
There's not been anybody since, I submit, in a television studio that could electrify you like Brian Clough did.
I criticised Sir Alf when he was on the top. His character now will stand him in good stead because he's a bit of a stubborn bugger.
The Polish women in the corp who used to serve the cheese and the polony and all that type of thing, when I had a go at the... I was doing a lot of television in those days. It was the only time I fell out with them, when I hammered the Poles, when they beat us in the World Cup, and I had a go at the goalkeeper.
That other clown at the other end was...
Yeah, but you keep calling him... Hey, Brian, you keep calling him a clown, but in fact that fellow has made some fantastic saves, and he's kept England...
And the portions of polony and cheese dramatically dropped overnight, and the Polish ladies didn't speak to me for ages and ages, but I think they're forgiving me now.
The qualities that had seen him so in demand by television were now the very ones that brought him into conflict with Derby chairman Sam Longson.
Clough was a bit of a gamble for Derby, and my goodness, Sam found the best manager in the land, who was big on television, was a celebrity, was quoted everywhere, and became bigger than Sam Longson. And Sam, like any chairman, couldn't handle that, and he thought he was neglecting his duties. So in the end, he had to say, "This is not good enough, you've got to rein this in. You're supposed to be here running what is now a big football club. I don't want you on telly every week."
The biggest mistake he's made, I think, of criticising and insulting personnel of the football world.
The directors thought he was out of control, and the Football League used to write and say, "Your manager has done this and your manager's done that," and so the board had to address Brian, why was he doing this? Because there was something in the press about Brian Clough said this or Brian Clough said that.
It's not a fight between Brian and myself and Peter. It's a fight between, shall we say, right or wrong.
It does surprise me a little bit that people who want me to stop putting two words together can't put them together themselves.
In those days, he used to resign every single week from Derby. And then one day Sam Longson decided, well, okay, yeah, I'll accept it. And then Brian just couldn't believe it.
I resigned and they've accepted it. Peter and I are now officially finished with this Derby County Football Club.
Can you tell us why you resigned?
Brian, can you just answer? That is the last question. Thank you very much indeed.
It was just an incredible shock, not just to the players. The whole of Derby could not believe that it had happened.
The drama at Derby started in the streets outside the ground just before the kick-off. There you can see the crowd about an hour, three-quarters of an hour before the match.
That day when he came back for Derby's first match after the walkout was just incredible. There was Sam Longson taking the cheer of the crowd in one little area of the director's box, and Clough had sneaked in round the back, and of course the cheers were 3 times as loud for him.
And there in the stand is Brian Clough.
He just had to milk it, and he did.
Clough then left for London and the Parkinson Show, where he was as forthright as ever.
I would love a few chairmen on your programme occasionally. I believe the very sight of them brings the game into disrepute. And every time they open their mouths, it kills it.
With Derby just a memory, Clough and Taylor headed south for the sea and sand of Brighton and Hove Albion.
Well, of course, you've been renowned in the past, particularly at Derby, Brian, for being a very controversial, very outspoken character. Will we be seeing this type of Brian Clough at Brighton?
I prefer to think it's a touch of honesty, young man.
While Brighton were languishing in the old third division at English football's summit, Don Revie's Leeds United were once again champions.
It was just an unbelievable time to be associated with Leeds United, but that's what the gaffer created, and it was a pleasure and an honour to be part of that.
Well, I think there was a great respect from me to them and from them back to me. We were very, very close, and I don't know, there was a bond that nobody could break.
And we play all the way for Leeds United. Ellen Road is the only place.
Revie's affection for Leeds wasn't shared by many neutrals.
Love to see the tightening up of referees extended to such an extent where it would be a crime to go and clobber somebody.
More often than not, on Football Focus, every Saturday, Cloughie would be on there. And I don't think we were his favourite club, to be honest, or his favourite players. They used to really have a right go at us.
The dirty Leeds tag didn't stop Revie becoming England's new manager, leaving a vacancy at Elland Road.
The gaffer did tell us that he recommended to the board of directors John Giles and Billy Bremner be a joint managerial, and that would have gone down well. Typical our board didn't listen to our gaffer, which I think they should have done.
I would think if you'd have said any manager out of 1,000 that Brian Clough wouldn't have been the name anybody would come up with. For our board to go and appoint him was the most amazing thing.
You ain't going to believe this, but he was a nervous man meeting us, and you wouldn't think that, would you? The first meeting, I think that was his downfall, because he actually went through, what he thought of each and every one of us. His remarks wasn't very nice, to say the least. What he said to Eddie was, you should have played far more matches than you have done, because if you'd have been a racehorse, you'd have been shot, young man.
I think if he'd have come in and just said, look, never mind what I said in the past, you're a good side, and I only said the things I did to try and upset you a bit, professionalism, it would have been accepted. But he came in and he wouldn't let it die, he wouldn't let it rest.
And almost his first action, as I think is famously known, was to tell them to put away all their medals because they only got them by cheating. It's hardly designed to get people on your side.
There, the man who takes over from Don Revie, Brian Clough.
Under the old gaffer's watchful eye, Clough saw his first match in charge of Leeds descend into chaos.
But the slippery slope for him at the start of that season. They couldn't find their form, or didn't want to find it. I don't know. I think there were some players there who didn't want to play for Clough.
We were brought up on playing for each other, working for each other. We were a family, and there was just no feeling round the place. It was just a matter of we're going out to play a match, and we don't really want to play for this guy, and so therefore there was a bad feeling round the dressing room.
I ended up with John O'Hare following Brian to Leeds United, and I knew after one day it was a no-go situation. I've never come to an abrupt halt as suddenly as that. The players obviously weren't prepared to take him. And I even sat in at one or two players' meetings where they were trying to get rid of him.
O'Hare can't shake off Gallagher, although that hit the referee. And here's Clark! The referee may have helped Leeds. He has!
Clough won just one match at Leeds, and after 6 weeks he was axed.
How can anybody do anything in 44 days? Just impossible. I mean, God couldn't do anything, could he, in 44 days? Never mind Brian Clough.
Why is Mr. Clough the wrong man now when he was the right man exactly 6 to 7 weeks ago?
Because the board thinks that to keep the players happy and this is what we should do.
We have been blamed for getting him the sack. Now, my answer to that is purely and simply this. When a football club appoints a manager, that manager is appointed by the board of directors. And when that football club sacks a manager, he is sacked by the board of directors. End of story.
I think it's a very sad day for Leeds. I think it's slightly sad for football.
It was the first time he hadn't had Peter, and I think the first thing he did when he blew it at Leeds was to go and get Peter Taylor back on board with him. So I think that showed that Brian realised, you know, probably he wasn't able to do it on his own.
He went into the lion's den, I'm afraid, and they ate him. Not many people have done that.
The day he was sacked, Clough agreed to go on Yorkshire television to talk about his time at Leeds. Don Revie had also been approached to appear on the show.
Why did you come from Brighton to Leeds to take it over when you'd criticised them so much? Why do you take the job?
No, because I thought it was the best job in the country. I wanted to do something you hadn't done. I want to win the league, but I want to win it better.
Yeah, but there's no way you can win it better.
Why not?
No.
I couldn't give any other answer. And I wanted to win the European Cup.
Truthfully, I think that Brian is a fool to himself.
I want to be like me. Well, Don obviously wants to be like him. I believe in a different concept of football to Don. I think.
Clough's brief tenure at Leeds became the subject of David Peace's novel The Damned United.
What I did was, I in researching the novel, was to read all the books that the Leeds players had written about their time, all the books Clough had written himself, because he wrote a number of autobiographies and then books about Clough, then started to imagine what it would be like. So it's true, but filtered through my imagination.
Peace's posthumous portrayal of Clough was controversial and criticised by Brian's family, who rejected it, but it didn't stop the novel becoming a film.
I think what we've done with the film is very different to what the book is. The book is a very dark book and does concentrate on a very particular period of time in Clough's life and career. And if there's going to be one film about Brian Clough, if I was a member of his family, I would want it to be a joyous, celebratory thing and looking at all his achievements, not just this one very particular period. And so I completely understand why they've been very wary about the film.
I think the film was more accurate than I thought it would be, having read the book.
What upset me was that it portrayed as if Billy was a troublemaker, which couldn't be further from the truth. It was absolute rubbish, that. But that upset me, that.
But as far as I'm concerned, the first thing you can do for me is to chuck all your medals and all your caps and all your pots and all your pans into the biggest fucking dustbin you can find. Because you've never won any of them fairly. You've done it all by bloody cheating.
A lot had been said about the players had got Brian Clough the sack, which wasn't, in our opinion, the case. Brian had got himself the sack. And when they told us the way the film was going to be portrayed, we thought, yes, that would be great, because everybody will be able to think, well, if that was me in the office or at work, and somebody had have come in and said that to me, what would my reaction be? And the amount of people I've talked to since, and I've never heard anybody not say, well, you can't believe a man would behave like that. And if he had have done it to me, the reaction would have been exactly the same.
Look, it's Players' Lounge, Brian. 10 minutes.
The guy who played Cloughie, by Christ, what an actor he is, because I closed my eyes and it was like listening to Brian.
Ah, you are a disgrace! For missing the target from there, you want bloody shooting! Now get in there!